Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the Hobbitcast. I'm your host, Ben McDonald, and today's episode 13, Insulin Resistance. As normal, I have a co-host, and today I've got Karen along with me.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hi, Karen. Your liver is so fat that I thought we need to have a long discussion about it.
Okay.
Today's episode is about insulin resistance and the path to health. This is such a complicated topic. So many people seem to be confused by insulin. They're confused by the insulin resistance. You know, we keep talking about the fatty liver. We keep talking about adipocytes and insulin resistance. I thought if you and I could sit down and really just hash this out, that maybe we could plant a flag on what this whole thing means, and more importantly, what to do about it.
I'm excited. This will be good.
So, Karen, how did this happen? We got fat.
I don't know. I know. I woke up one morning and I was 300 pounds.
Literally overnight.
It just literally overnight.
Like
it just sort of happened.
Fairy. The fat fairy came and paid me a visit. Hooray!
It's true. Yeah, and then all of a sudden I had this big old liver.
Yes. This is a problem because all you have to do is just have a salad for lunch and you could just turn it all around and get right back to skinny, right?
Totally. I did that once. I ate nothing but salad for like a month. And
how'd that work?
I nearly died. You think I'm cranky now.
Oh, no.
You should see me after 6 weeks of non-fat vegan food.
I know a lot of people who believe that they can continue to just restrict calories and they will quietly lose a little bit of weight. And then as soon as they stop restricting calories, going off their quote unquote diet, what happens? Right back up.
It all comes back. Yeah, I've seen that a few times on my own butt. Yeah, you know, with the calorie surplus, you will gain, but when it comes to losing weight or how much weight you will gain, there are other factors in play.
That's right. And that's what we want to talk about. A lot of the methodologies that Karen and I advocate, the ketogenic diet, the fasting, all that stuff, it all comes down to manipulating this hormonal environment where your body can do two things effectively. Number one, and most importantly, using fat as its primary fuel. If you're trying to lose weight and your weight is stored as fat, probably the best thing in the world you could do is shift your body into fat as fuel mode. But then also managing this hormonal environment such that it is favorable to fat being released from its storage locations so that your body can use it for blah, blah, and blah. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we get too deep into the biology of this, let's just kind of go over how this could happen, Karen. Obviously calorie surplus.
There's no fat fairy. Yeah.
No fat fairy. I mean, I hope your kids aren't listening to the podcast. I mean, they're ruining the big surprise. We ate too much and we did it for a long time. And over the course of years, we filled up our fat cells by intaking more energy than our body could shunt off. Now, some of that is because we were wildly overeating.
Yeah.
The Big Mac extra value meal, not an appropriate number of calories in a day. But then also,
it's quite a bit. Yeah.
Having a small French fry on an empty stomach as a snack. Oh, but it's only 100 calories of the highest GI food that money can buy, which is, white potatoes that turn immediately into sugar, spike your insulin, and promote a ginormous storage of energy because your body can't use it all at one time. There's decisions that can be made. This is not necessarily gross overeating. Sometimes nutrient selection can be a big component to this. So
Yeah, it's that powerful combination of carbs through starch or sugar plus fat.
and this is the thing, Karen and I are both fans of Dr. Fung out of the Intensive Dietary Management Program. He writes a lot of very provocative blogs that get a lot of attention. But one of the things that Fung has been very consistent in is his message is it's not calories in and calories out. There is more to this story than just the energy level. Your body has the ability to shunt off 30% excess calories. It can just heat up and dump calories and just waste them. So there has to be more to this story. So Karen, why don't you talk us through kind of what goes on with the fat cells? I've got a slide for you on this.
Oh, yay. Slides. Well, we have fat cells that we store. This is how we store energy for a rainy day, right? You intake your nutrients and they're stored in your fat cells. So we call these cells adipocytes.
Okay.
Now in a healthy adipocyte, there are little lipid droplets. So think of like sort of little drops of oil.
Okay.
That's exactly what they are. And in a healthy fat cell, we have these little GLUT4. They're sort of like tubes on the outside, and that can intake energy as it comes in the form of glucose. Now, what happens is if you start taking in more and more and more calories, more energy, those little lipid droplets, they combine, the little outer coatings, they break, and this adipocyte will start to swell. It's broken now at this point. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it tries to take in more and more energy because it's thinking, you're sort of like people are just like animals, so you're saving this for a rainy day. But eventually, you get to the point where these little tubes that take in glucose, they stop functioning. The adipocyte is too big. It's now broken. You can sort of, I like to think of things as in sort of a practical sense. So you can sort of see bigger fat cells, particularly for us ladies, in the mirror once you start to get cellulite. So there are other things in play. There's fluid displacement and there's broken microcirculation. But you can see sort of a texture. The texture is wrong. It's no longer smooth. And you have this lumpy orange peeling mess.
That's interesting that I wasn't even really thinking about that, but you're right. And when this process starts to occur, I mean, there are visible changes in the body, and usually they start right around that belly button area.
Usually, yeah. Usually, especially for people that are insulin resistant, it's going to occur around the waist, and that's a marker that things are starting to go wrong.
So one of the other big things about this is there is no overnight magical switch where one day you are and one day you aren't. This is a progressive process. There are many phases to it. But most importantly is thinking about the hormones. When you're thinking about how your body works, you eat food, the food goes into the body, it gets worked through the stomach, goes into the intestine, gets absorbed into the blood, it floats around. Depending on what kind of micronutrient it is, your body's going to react to it in different ways. But primarily, it's going to react to it by releasing hormones, most importantly, insulin, which is the nutrient storage hormone. That's the signal of, hey, food is available. energy, nutrients, building blocks are available, go forth and configure to absorb them. So that's where these little GLUT4 receptors come in is, if there's sugar floating around, you go, all right, well, we want to have some of that sugar and we want to get that into the cell because having glucose it's a great energy substrate. It's, it's what your muscles primarily like to use if you're being chased by a tiger. So it's perfect to have some. But this hormone can get a little bit out of whack. And what happens is as those adipocytes swell up and fill up with those cells, the excess lipid, they stop responding to a normal level of hormone. They go, look, I'm full. I'm not taking any more energy and I have achieved the maximum amount of energy I can store. So that energy just continues to circulate. So then you have this organ called the pancreas. The pancreas creates a couple different hormones, but most notably the insulin. It's going to create this hormone that says, all right, well, I'm going to double down and release even more insulin, because the way hormones work is it's just a squirt of a chemical that floats around in your blood. It just randomly bumps into cells and trips off behavior. So if you flood the blood with even more hormone, you bump into more cells and therefore get a stronger reaction to the given hormone release. So slowly over time, as more and more cells become full, it takes more and more insulin to become responsive to an excess of nutrient. Now, in this slide, it's particularly interesting because a lot of times when we're talking with people, Karen, it's blood glucose, right? It's all about the diabetes or the pre-diabetes. And the reason for that is glucose is super cheap and super easy to measure, and you can even do it at home. But guess what?
That's true.
Glucose is not what it's all about. There's more to this story because glucose is I'm not even sure what the word is, because glucose is just sugar floating around. Insulin is the hormone. Your body doesn't create the glucose. Your body is responding to the glucose. Your body creates the insulin and affects how much it's going to release or not. So in this picture, you can see a really, and for the audio people, I'll try and describe this as best I can, but you might want to check out the show notes on this one. We've got 5 or 6 slides that these are complex issues. And if you don't have a couple pictures, it becomes a very difficult story to tell. So in this picture, what you can see is that on the 3 meals, the difference between a normal and obese person is that an obese person maybe has slightly higher 5-10% levels of glucose in their blood, but that it more or less tracks. And this is someone who is obese, not someone who is diabetic. Often we are talking about true diabetes, but in this case, we're just talking about somebody who's 30, 40 pounds overweight. They're obese. They're pudgy, they're round, they're smooth, and they're curvy.
You make it sound so appealing.
That's right. But they have not progressed into a diseased state yet. And that's the key. Because here's what's actually going on that is the start of this progression. Your insulin, meanwhile, has gone from spiking at meal times from its baseline of 10 to 40 or 50. In the obese, it can go as high as 140 without seeing any implications of that in the glucose. Oh, your blood glucose is fine, Karen. Everything's normal. You're making 300% more insulin than a normal, healthy human being. But otherwise, you're doing great. No problems. You're not pre-diabetic yet.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind is that you're pumping out all this insulin, and insulin is a fat storage hormone.
Yeah, that's right.
This is something that you can't measure for it, but you can see it happening.
Exactly. So unless you're doing complex insulin testing, there are some protocols for this. One of them most notably is called the Kraft protocol, where they they shoot you up with some sugar and then take your blood every 20, 30 minutes for 3 or 4 hours and kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
If a normal human goes from 10 to 40 and you're going 10 to 100, then you're insulin resistant, and that can be seen in a lab. The problem is there's no home test for insulin, Karen. It doesn't exist yet. I was up on Amazon. It's not available.
If it was on Amazon, Ben would have found it.
That's right. I love Amazon. So here is the crux of the problem. You have a progressive disease. As soon as you can look in the mirror and go, getting a little soft in the midsection, you have become insulin resistant a little. And that is a progressive disease as your obesity continues to grow, as your waistline continues to grow, as you fill up more and more adipocytes and end up with this scenario where you now have a body full of full fat cells. So every time you take in energy, there's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
This is problematic, Karen.
It is. With those little adipocytes, they're full and they can't even take the thinnest wafer.
A wafer thin mint? Just one wafer thin mint.
And it's bucket time. The glucose has to go somewhere, and if it's not going to go in the adipocyte, then it's going to go in the bucket.
That's right.
And you're the bucket.
Well, that what a great tee up. It's like you're a professional podcaster. Look at this. Right into our next bullet of what secondary disease may arise. That's Karen, ladies and gentlemen. That's professional broadcasting. That's the experience that only 13 shows could really bring to the table. That's the smoothest segue she's ever done. Whoo, that's a moment. I just want to enjoy it.
All right.
That was nice, Karen. I'm impressed. Wow.
Settle down now.
Okay.
Secondary diseases, Ben.
Yes, I'm getting back. Would you allow me to glory in your magnificence for a moment, please? I mean, come on.
Glory away. Glory away.
Secondary diseases that insulin resistance causes. There's really two other than the obvious stuff that we need to talk about. Number one, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If you start walking towards a wall and your tummy touches before your nose, it's likely that part of the reason for that is because your liver preceded the remainder of your body because it's gotten fat. Your liver gets fat. Do people understand this, Karen?
What I would like to see people do is, because I could see it in myself. It's gone down now. I can't see it anymore, but I can see it in my husband because he's got that typical middle-aged male physique where all the weight's in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you lie down and you look down, with a lot of people that have this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, your stomach is bigger on the right side. You can see your liver because it's poking out underneath your ribs and it's pushing out that part of your torso. I could see it, and I could see it in my husband. I saw him. He was lying down on the couch using his iPhone, playing Candy Crush, and I could see that one side of the belly was bigger.
That is crazy.
But it's true. That's one of the things that when the doctor comes in and they manipulate your torso, they're sitting there, they're percussing. They're feeling for that.
Without a doubt, a trained physician will go, and you'll notice this next time you're at the doctor. If you're obese, they'll have you lie down, and he'll start working on the right side of your tummy. And what he's feeling,
they want to see it poke out.
Right. The liver is kind of shaped like a triangle, like a right angle triangle, and it's heavy on the right side. So you can feel those lobes getting enlarged with that fat. Your liver, your liver can swell up. I'm trying to remember. There have been some cool stats, but like if you're 250 pounds, your liver may be as big as a football. It is.
Yep.
We are not talking about trivial amounts of swelling. We are talking about ridiculous levels of swelling. So it's scary though, because your liver does an awful lot of work for you, and what you don't want it to do is to take a beating from being fat. That is not good. So that is a progressive disease state. The first state of that is called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, your liver can tolerate being fat up to a point, and then it starts to get dysfunctional, and it becomes damaged from being so fat. And that damage turns into scar. And your liver can heal itself from a remarkably deep level of insult, but scar is scar. So once that happens, you now have a state of liver called cirrhosis. And that is permanently, irreversibly reduced liver function.
We should stress this has nothing to do with alcohol.
Right. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is just from being fat. You can kill your liver.
Yep.
And just as a side note, the only reason that there's a non-alcoholic and an alcoholic is because non-alcoholic fatty liver disease happens due to insulin resistance. Alcoholic fatty liver disease occurs because you drink a lot of alcohol, which is actually a macronutrient. It's pure energy. So your liver turns alcohol into fat. So it's basically the same thing. There is no real distinction. It's just that if you're hitting the bottle hard enough to be on the alcoholic track, then you're taking in 1,000 calories of liquid energy. So it happens pretty quick, and the scarring is profound. And so it happens a lot faster. But it does happen. The progression is exactly the same. It's just the etiology of it that's a little different. The other one that is worth noting is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is something a lot of people.
We hear about this a lot.
Yeah, we get a lot of folks on the board who are seeking fertility improvement because they're obese and having difficulty conceiving, or they've noticed their like their cycles get weird. They start getting facial hair. They start missing periods. A lot of weird manly chins, sex hormone disruption, like weird stuff. Like somebody who's profoundly PCOS has facial changes from the sex hormone stuff that happens. I mean, you can sometimes see it. It's not awesome.
I see that a lot in my former career as an esthetician. You'd have people come in that were concerned about hair, facial hair. And if the problem was deep enough, you would start to see them have changes to the skeletal system that would kind of square off the jaw.
Now, before we get any angry letters, I do want to note that there is a form of PCOS that is not based on insulin resistance, but this is a self-selecting audience. If you're listening to this, the PCOS that you have is IR. So there is anything that has the word syndrome. I don't know if you know this. When you hear the word syndrome, that's doctor speak for
we're not sure, but you do have this symptoms.
Right.
Yeah.
The symptom is not disease. Symptom is we've seen this before, but we don't know what it is. So when you see something like PCOS, you go, well, there's probably like 9 different things it actually is. And that would be the truth. But for the majority,
the PCOS due to the insulin resistance, that's pretty common.
It is. And it's also why we see a lot of keto babies. We get a lot of them.
They're few.
They go on keto, make substantial improvements to their insulin resistance. The sex hormones re-regulate, and poof, all of a sudden,
and they also
trying to conceive becomes, does anybody know a keto pregnancy group? And I love
They
that.
start looking good too. That doesn't hurt either.
I love those posts. Does anybody know of a keto pregnancy group? Uh-huh. And it's usually about month 3 or 4 in the group when you see those. It's funny how that works. All right.
After about 3 or 4 months, you start getting some more energy too. So
yeah. Moving on, family show. All right. Let's talk about the biology of obesity just a little bit. And we're not going to go too deep into the rabbit hole here, but it's important that everyone has a basic understanding of what we're talking about. You know, we've kind of been dancing around it, so we're just going to go a little bit deeper just to make sure that you kind of understand what has been done here.
All right.
So the first and most important thing to understand is you basically have 2 insulin sensitive types of cells. There's some more, but let's just focus on the big ones. You've got muscle and fat tissue. Mm-hmm. So when you have energy nutrient available to your body, you've got muscle, which will take that energy and either store it locally inside the muscle cell for, a tiger event, or your fat cells, which store the energy away, long-term storage, bear hibernating in the woods kind of storage. That cycle of the fat cells taking energy in, swelling up like a water balloon, mm-hmm. liberating those fatty lipids, and then deflating again is perfectly normal, perfectly natural. It's something Dr. Naiman calls the winter cycle, where in the winter, you were designed to live off of stored energy from all the berries and delightful treats that you were able to obtain in the summer. You fatten up in the summer, just like all the squirrels and bears do. And then in the winter, during times of scarcity, you make up for the deficit with this stored energy. That's what your body was designed to do. It's perfectly normal, perfectly natural. That flux, I call it energy flux, in and out. It's okay. The problems become when you have modern culture. Modern culture makes it such that you have the ability to get excess high-speed summer calories all year long. Bowls of fruit.
Every day is Easter dinner.
That's right. In a biology where you were designed to have 1, maybe 2 seasons of high-speed calories and 2 seasons of crap where you can't get anything to eat, we now have boxes of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Twinkies, Doritos, French fries, all of these things, sticky buns from the vending machine.
Fast food places on every corner.
Right. All of these foods promote excess calories because it's very easy to overeat certain kinds of calories, especially carbohydrates, for reasons that, anyone who knows anything about keto understands that that's a double whammy because of how insulinogenic it is. Yeah. So you take in these excess calories, you've got a certain amount of normal storage just set up. Everybody, there's no such thing as zero body fat. It doesn't exist. When you're seeing these fitness models up there, like the bikini babes and the big Arnold Schwarzeneggers up on stage, for a man, they're 4 to 6% body fat. And for a female, they're 14% body fat. Yeah. And you can count the veins on their skin. I mean, it is a truly an unhealthy level of body fat. Your body requires a certain amount of this storage. So that set point of how many stores you have, it's informed by a lot of things, right? Genetics, your ethnicities, different. We all know there are some, races and geopolitical areas that are traditionally skinny or traditionally fat, and that's just kind of how it is. Age has a big thing too. You know, you don't see as many super fat kids because kids just don't have that much storage. But as you get older, you know, teenagers don't have it either. As you get older, the middle, as Karen said, the middle-aged male starts to blow out those storage a little bit. That's just normal. That's just what it is. When that energy storage is exceeded, you have this spillover and your body has to do something with it. So what it does is it starts creating additional adipocytes, and it's going to do it in bad places, in the visceral, which is under your stomach muscle. I've got a picture of this on the slide where this is around your organs. Like, in addition to your liver getting fat, it'll actually lay down a nice layer of bare fat right on top of the liver, like a warm blanket.
Yeah, it does.
This is profoundly dangerous because
it is.
what we know is once your body goes into that mode, you are in tremendous risk of disease state, and disease and death by lots of ways. It's not the fat itself that's dangerous. It's that if you're in a state where you're overfilling this much, you've increased your risk substantially. So your body tries to shunt this fat, this excess energy, to all these places. It's going to stick it in your belly. It's going to stick it under your skin. It's going to stick it on your back. I know you see this a lot more in women than men, but you know, the traditional back boob, if you will, that below the shoulder blade, you know, it's got a fancy word, the retroperitoneal area, where you actually start to get a nice layer of fat. And you see in old ladies too, another layer of fat along the shoulders too. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, Karen.
No, not on me.
Well, not on you. You're not an old lady. Old ladies get it. It's there.
I'll never tell. No, I do understand the whole back boob thing that happens. I have to get down to a very low body fat percentage before that goes away. I don't think I'm designed to hold that much fat.
Good. So your body is doing everything it can to find places to shunt this energy through this adipocyte cycle of you know, creating water balloons so that they could storage. And different parts of your body kind of have a different level of whether or not they will fill up and multiply or swell up to the high, you know, the larger size cells that Karen was showing earlier. You see them both ways, right?
Yeah.
You know, the important thing to note is that this is a bad thing when this starts happening, but it's part of the cycle because your body is trying to store the excess calories, because especially sugar-based energy is dangerous for your body. You know, it can hurt your nerves. It can hurt your retina. It can cause damage to your veins. It's very dangerous for your body to have a lot of glucose floating around. So it's important that it shuttles it off somewhere. You got to stick it somewhere. You got to give it somewhere to go. And your body does a very good job of that. So where this next part of this gets interesting is this progression of insulin response. You've got these happy little beta cells in your pancreas, which is a little organ right next to your liver. It's kind of hiding behind your stomach. And its job is to deal with a couple of these hormones, notably insulin, that's created by something called beta cells. These beta cells are responsible for dumping out the insulin. Now, as we saw in the other graph, during times of obesity, we may be asking your pancreas to do 300 to 400% of normal levels of insulin. So you're asking a lot. I mean, imagine if we went to your heart and went, oh, I know your heart normally beats, 80, 90 times a minute. We're going to need 270. What do you think happens when you do that? And then do it 3 times a day after every day.
Eventually your heart will tell you no.
Yeah, kind
It's the
of
same thing with your
sounds like this.
Yep.
So it's not good to ask anything to
No.
do 300% of normal. I think we can all agree on that. So the next part of that is the beta cells start burning out because you're asking them to do more than they're capable of.
Yep.
When those beta cells start to burn out, guess what happens? You have less available cells, which puts more load on the remaining cells. So now instead of asking, 10,000 cells to release, 120 units of insulin, now you have 8,000 cells. And in order for them to reach those levels of insulin, they have to produce 400% of normal. So then
Fantastic.
more burnout. So more burnout and more burnout.
Yeah.
And you end up with 3,000 cells instead of 10,000 cells. And now they're having to do 1,000% more work. And then you go to your doctor and you say, hey, doc, why is my blood sugar going up to 270 when I have a cheeseburger? And your doctor says, I know what we'll do. We'll give you this handy medication called insulin, and that'll keep your blood sugar from going so high. We'll treat the symptom rather than the cause. So you shoot up the insulin. Okay, great. Now we've taken the load off the pancreas. All's well, right? Exactly.
Fantastic.
So, fantastic. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you still have insulin resistance in all these cells. And so next month, you're going to need just a little bit more insulin shot and a little bit larger and a little bit larger. And that will never stop until you die. And that's why they call diabetes a progressive disease.
Progressive disease.
Because it will progress. That approach will end in disaster. What's crazy is, if you think about this, you got your these beta cells that are being run at 400% normal. Well, then they come out with these medications. They're like, oh, you know what we can do? We figured out that if you come in with these crazy, peptide proteins, that we can make them produce 600%, even though they only would need 400%. And we can work them even harder. What a great idea. Let's do that. And then calamity ensues.
Yeah.
So many of these medications that are designed to treat insulin actually cause it to accelerate. And then you end up with these beta cell burnout. Well, this roller coaster nonsense is one of the reasons why the ketogenic diet is so important, is because it offers a way off of this crazy thing. This progression of insulin response can only be stopped via 2 mechanisms. Number 1, changing what you eat. If eating a cheeseburger requires 140 units of insulin to get rid of, if you ate a steak and a little bit of asparagus, you might only need 20 units. So now, instead of asking this belabored pancreas to produce 400% extra, you're only asking it to produce 20% extra. That's not so bad, right? That's better.
It's much better. Yeah.
It's much better. That is that's a relatively good story, but
Yeah.
that's not
Mhm.
enough. It will certainly turn what is a progressive and inevitable end into a much longer tailed story. So if all you
Mm.
do is take someone who's wildly obese and get them low carb, their need for insulin will go down to basically zero. And if they have,
Very quickly.
if their pancreas is working, if they haven't burned off all their beta cells,
Yeah.
usually on keto, you can get them off the meds 7-8 weeks.
Oh yeah,
That-
I've seen people go from 5 injections of insulin a day to 0 in a few months.
I was just talking to somebody who went from 50 units down to 0.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. All right. 7 weeks, huh? That's pretty good.
Mhm.
Dr. Fung has a famous video about somebody who basically, I think that person was like 55 units, and then through
Mhm.
fasting and a low carb diet was able to get down to 0 units within, just a couple months,
Yeah, I
and
think it was 2 months. Yeah.
without any impact to their glucose. Like their glucose didn't go up, it didn't go down,
No,
just kind of went the same.
it stayed pretty static.
Meanwhile, you've gone from flogging the pancreas like a rental car to being a little bit more normal, right? You're saying, all right,
Yeah.
we're going to need you to do some work here, but it's not an unreasonable amount. So that's the progression of insulin response. And the reason that it's so important to really get that in your head is that's what's going on here. That's what we're talking about.
Mhm.
It's not that insulin is the bad guy. Do you think people understand that? Because we talk about insulin. Oh, you can't have whey powder. That's
You
insulinogenic.
you need insulin. If you don't have insulin, you're not going to last. But it's the appropriate amount of insulin at the appropriate times. But you need that insulin to create energy.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
you'll die.
Without the insulin, the nutrients will not get into the cell, and you die.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm.
So we're
So it's not
not.
a villain,
Insulin is
but
not a villain.
no, but there's too much of a good thing.
This progression of
Yeah.
insulin resistance and progression of pancreatic insulinic load
Mhm.
is problematic. It is progressive, and it ends in calamity 100% of the time. And that's the message around insulin resistance and why it's so important that you do something about it, because this road can only end worse than it is today. There's no scenario where it stays the same. It always progresses.
That's right.
That is huge. And that if you do nothing else, I mean, we all want to have a beach body and take our shirts off and walk around on the beach and not be disappointed in what happens. But that's not why you're at the table. You're at the table
No.
because this pancreatic load is going to kill you. If you do nothing, it will progress and you will die with a pancreas that has burned out beta cells, and it is not a good way to go. It is a level of health that is bad and involves losing toes and not being able to feel your toes and
Losing your
going,
eyesight and losing
yeah.
kidney function, and it just there is a massive black hole that you're headed towards.
The next time you're driving around, if you look real quietly in these little strip malls and, like 3-story office buildings for the word dialysis, you'll see
Yeah.
these dialysis centers everywhere. And it's a sign of the times, Karen. And it's because these kidneys get cooked in all this sugar and they need help. You get into this kidney disease and there's no way to cure it. You can only use a mechanical kidney that's external to your body, and it's called a dialysis machine.
Mhm.
It's spooky, and it all comes back to because a fat cell is too fat to accept additional energy storage, causing this progression of insulin ramping up nutrients floating around, causing more insulin to be required, causing da 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 da. It's this domino effect that all comes back to your big fat liver. Now, why is exercise such an important part of this biology? Because we've always said exercise is not required to lose weight. You really don't have to get out there and hustle. It's not important. It's not going to, we know plenty of sedentary people who have lost 100 pounds, right?
Yep. I always like to say exercise isn't important to lose weight, but if you want to maintain that weight loss, you need to incorporate exercise, and it all comes down to this issue of insulin resistance.
That's right. Energy flux. You've got to give the sugar somewhere to go.
Yes, sir.
If you do not make room at the table for additional energy, you will have problems.
Yeah.
If your goal is to reclaim health and wellness, exercise needs to be a part of what you do. And you don't need to start running 5Ks and marathons and doing tough mudders.
No couch to 5K?
That's not what we're talking about. I mean, if you want to do that, great. But that's not what's needed. What's needed is you creating some form of flux between a state of sedentary and a state of activity so that energy must flow. You want energy to flow from one place to the next place. Going for a walk around your neighborhood just for 20 minutes, 3-4 times a week. You're burning stored energy out of your muscle cells in your legs. And if you look down, you've got big muscles. Let's face it, if you're 300 pounds and you walk up a flight of steps in your 2-story house, I mean, you just deadlifted 300 pounds 15 times. That's pretty good.
Oh, impressive. Yeah.
That's what we call the nice hammer hock. That's a big piece of meat.
And yeah, that's how I started, just by, the 20-minute walk.
Yes.
About 4 or 5 times a week.
Exercise generates an opportunity for your body to take energy from storage and put it into a place where it can be burned. And that is why exercise is always a component to optimal improvement in insulin response. You'll notice in the IK model, exercise is a component, and it became such an important part that we actually, at first I was just going to kind of get into exercise stuff, but as Scooter and I kind of went through it and we got some more admins who were a little more athletically oriented.
Yeah.
We actually created the Keto Fit group so that we could focus on exercise as a core component. And a lot of the members, not everybody's got a six-pack there, but everybody's doing things to try and move to give the sugar somewhere to go. Because if you can get that fat out of your liver, if you can get the glucose out of your liver, if you can get all those things, burn off that glycogen so that it's got a place to move that energy around. And as soon as you start moving that energy around, you will feel different. And more importantly, your body will start to respond different. You start to get this stuff called gene expression, where your body will go, oh, wait a minute. You mean there's actually going to, instead of sitting on a couch and watching Netflix all day, we're going to need to use these muscles and be prepared to generate additional energy for these muscle cells. Well, you know what I better do? I better build up more mitochondria. And that's called gene expression. So you end up building more horsepower, a stronger engine, more capable of burning more fat as fuel as part of that reaction to the stress of the energy flux. That's a good thing.
It is.
Exercise causes stress. and your body responds favorably by increasing your capacity to do work. And the process of that is going to give the stored energy somewhere to go, and in the process create a hole so that the next time you eat, there's more cells that are willing and happily able to intake that energy, so that it doesn't have to ramp up that insulin to 300 and 400% of normal to give these nutrients somewhere to go to get them out of the blood.
Yep.
Now, Karen, I thought it'd be good for you just to talk about your journey. When you and I started working together, we were not focused on a lot of the technical mechanics of this. You were a tell me what to go do and I'll go do it.
I'm always been a, where the rubber meets the road kind of person. I enjoy learning about these things, but if I can't apply it, if I can't use it for myself, and if I can't use it to help other people, then I don't want to hear it. Thanks for your mouse studies, sir.
Yes.
Ain't into it.
When
yeah.
When you first started, I would say you were fairly insulin resistant.
I was very insulin resistant. Of course I was. I was pre-diabetic. I had reached that tipping point.
Mm-hmm. You had reached, and so let's define what that means. Pre-diabetes is the state of metabolism, or not metabolism, the state of biology whereby your pancreas can no longer generate enough insulin to respond to the glucose load.
Those beta cells were starting to go away. They were quitting on me.
Right. They could not keep up. There was not enough places for it to go. Every cell in Karen's body was full, no matter how much insulin was released. So glucose would creep up after the meal to super normal levels. And that would be that, famous 140, 160 area.
Yeah, I had an A1C of 6.2, so that's about just under 150.
Ooh, yeah. No, there you go. And
so that's my average glucose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can remember testing after a sugar meal, something that had I don't know what it had. I think it had plum sauce in it or something, and I would see it approach 200, no problem.
Oof. Now, when you first started your early days of going low carb, do you feel like you lost a lot of weight at the beginning? Like, did it happen quick, or did it happen slow and then speed up as you settled in? Like, what was that experience for you?
Yes and no. When you're obese, there's a lot of inflammation going on. I was eating a lot of things that, I do have an autoimmune disease. So I was in a state of inflammation. So there was a lot that came off the first month, but it wasn't fat. It was just, I was so inflamed that when I'd wake up in the morning, I couldn't move my joints. My fingers were stiff. I would have to kind of use my momentum to get down the stairs because my hips and my ankles and knees were so stiff. So there was that came off first. So it came off really quickly, and then it stopped. It pretty much, after 6 to 8 weeks, came to a trickle, and at that point, I would have been about still, 280 pounds. And to me, that wasn't acceptable. So I started, I was looking at what I was eating, and I was definitely eating a respectable calorie deficit. I was eating low carb.
Sure.
But it had slowed to a pound a week.
Yes.
And it made no sense because I was looking at the numbers going, well, I should be losing 2 to 3.
Yeah.
So I had to look at what was broken. And it all comes down to my insulin resistance. So What I did at that point, there were two things. I started doing appropriate meal timing, because what I was doing before was sort of what a lot of people do when they're eating a ketogenic diet. They see that massive weight loss at the beginning, and you
Yeah.
can pretty much eat whatever you want as long as you're below your 20 grams of carbs. You can eat
Buttered pork rinds.
whenever you want. You can eat buttered pork rinds, but I did not eat those. But I would eat all day, because that was what I got used to. When you're a carb burner, when
Small
that's your
meals.
primary source. Yeah, you eat small meals. So, when I was gaining weight, I was eating, I'd eat breakfast, and then I'd eat second breakfast, and then I would just keep going and going. There were way more snacks than that. Ben has a graphic he's showing that I think shows 3 snacks. There was probably about 10 snacks,
Oh, nice.
because I like to munch on potato chips.
Like the mighty moose, I graze every so often.
Yeah, it was more like, I don't know, less a moose, more like a manatee. But
See, I went with the majestic moose. Just trying to be delicate.
I like to swim, so we'll go with manatee.
All right.
But so I was used to that rhythm. That's how I ate. So I ate a little bit. So I have a little bit of nuts, a little bit of cheese, and it stopped working for me. I no longer had the results that I wanted. So the two things that I worked on were meal timing and a little bit of movement. And with the meal timing, I incorporated some intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And with the exercise, being 280 pounds, well, I was kind of limited to taking the dog for a walk.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big piece of that is your joints are not capable of couch to 5K at 280.
I could try, but
that doesn't end well
go
either.
Go out there and jump on the trampoline. See what happens. But yeah, so it just, then it sped up. I was really impressed. I remember texting Ben that, I read Dr. Fung's The Obesity Code, and things started to make sense. So I started to look into fasting, and even though I was likely eating around the same amount of calories, all of a sudden I went from losing only 7 pounds in the last, I guess, 48 weeks to losing almost 20 pounds the next month.
There you go.
So things started clicking that this calories in, calories out wasn't everything.
Right. It's a huge piece of it. I mean, that right there, I want to take a beat and really hit that home, that no real change was made in the amount of food that you were eating, just in the timing of when you ate it. I think that's
I was still counting macros then. So I really, to me, it boggled my mind, because in every experience I had before, you have that first month where you lose a whole bunch of weight, and then it slows down, and then it slows down, and then it slows down. And I just assumed it was because, well, it's because I'm lighter now, so I'm burning less calories. But then to see that number amp up after I incorporated the appropriate nutrient density and meal timing was really impressive to me.
Yes.
I mean, it was bordering on magical. I was thrilled. And as I started incorporating the meal timing, I noticed that my blood glucose changed as well. After a couple of months, normally when I would wake up in the morning, my fasting blood glucose would be around 120, 110, 120. And then, because of the fasting and the meal timing, I would wake up with 2-digit numbers. So I'd typically be in the 90s when I'd wake up, and then, for the rest of the day, be in the 80s.
Wow. Karen, as we talk about this, I'm reminded of our friend Amber, who shared a piece of data with me, and she didn't say I could share this, but I'm sharing it with everybody. So who cares? So
I don't think she'd mind.
What's interesting?
She shared it with like 10,000 of our closest friends.
So yeah, 10,000 of our closest friends. So if you listen to what Karen is talking about what her experience was, is the same as Amber. You can see when Amber first started, kaboom, from 215 down to 200 in just a month. So she was,
The
off
inflammation is going away.
right. All that inflammation and water weight just burns off. And then she had a nice
Yeah.
run of about 2 or 3 months where it was just 5, 6 pounds, boom, 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 boom. And then she
Yeah.
started to plateau. And from
And it's like a
June,
quarter of a pound a week.
right, from June
And you're
to
doing all this
October.
work. That's the frustrating thing.
Oh yeah, she's counting. I mean, I was working with her. She would
Yep.
food log the macros, weighing everything, counting the carbs in garlic powder. She was, I mean, keto superstar, and she lost
Yeah.
10 pounds over 6 months, which is not impressive.
No, she was getting super frustrated. I
Yeah,
remember
I mean,
hearing from her, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
she was 180 in June, and she was 178 in October. That
Yeah.
eh,
And
that's
she was
not good.
chiseling away. She was not quitting.
She was not
still
done.
putting one foot in front of the other. Yeah.
Right. So if you think about that, it's basically a 5-pound loss in 6 months and doing everything right. And I mean, she was on the gas.
Oh,
Well,
totally.
then she met me and Karen, and we suckered her into skipping breakfast and a few more meals. And
Yeah.
all she really did was adopt a fasting model. And you can see what happened. She went from 178 down to 170 in less than a month. She went all the way down to 166. Boom, in 30 days. So she had lost 5 pounds over the previous 6 months. She incorporated fasting, and she immediately dropped 10 pounds in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
So
the
she was
only.
thrilled. She was bouncing off the walls when that happened.
Oh yeah. And the only change was manipulating the hormonal environment such that her insulin was having a chance to relax.
Yep.
Instead of this snacky, I'm hitting my macros model, that's not enough. It's not just the calories. It's also got to be getting your body into a state where it is receptive to releasing fat. And when your insulin is high, it's physically impossible to get the fat out of storage. And as soon as you get the insulin out of the way, boom, and it goes right back on the same glide path that she had the first couple months. And that's the incredible thing. She was losing 10 pounds a month for the first 3 months. And then once she had kind of cooked off the really easy stuff and got into this insulin resistance, until she started focusing on that hormone, it was not successful. And it's exactly the same story
Mm-hmm.
that Karen just told, where
That's right.
early days were awesome, then it got a little
And then
slack,
all of a sudden,
then she got mad. But I'd forgotten I had this graph, Karen. But it's so perfect because it's exactly the same thing that you just said. So I thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, no, she was thrilled when she discovered this meal timing thing. But
Okay.
and what I find exciting about manipulating these hormones and improving your insulin resistance as a woman,
Mhm.
if I may speak, as a woman, is where the fat comes off of. Notice that as I've improved this insulin resistance, as I become more receptive, um, I have a waist.
Mhm.
When I started, I refused to measure my waist. I used a ribbon instead because I didn't want to know the number of inches it was. So I
Right.
kept the ribbon, and I've measured it since.
Oh boy.
But it was it was 20 inches bigger than it is now.
Wow.
But
20 inches?
20 inches bigger than it is now. Now I measure my waist. It kind of gives me an indication of where I'm at, even if I'm not losing like 6 pounds a month. I can still see that that I'm still doing the work.
Right.
And now there's like a 10-inch difference between my waist and my hips. Like when I started this, I had that insulin resistant shaped body. I was shaped like a beer keg.
Mm.
So
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just blown away just thinking about what a difference that is.
20
It-
inches. Yeah, well, it's not just about the weight on the scale. It's where is that fat accumulating?
well, that too, right?
I have no
Okay.
idea how much of that was my liver. I don't even want to think about it.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the spooky thing about when you have 20 inches to lose on your waistline is how much damage has already been done to that liver, and you just don't know.
Mm,
I mean, you can find out, but until you lose the weight, you can't really. It once you've lost the weight, you can go in for an ultrasound and find out if there's damage or not.
mhm.
Very, very spooky feature to that. The good news is the liver is very resilient and it can put up with a lot of stuff. And it really takes 10 to 15 years of beating on it before things start getting bad. So no time like the present.
That's right, and that's what I'd really like to see with a lot of the people that we talk to. With myself, you know, I was lucky enough to have a doctor sit me down before things got too out of hand, and basically say, "Look at you. You've got a finite amount of time to reverse this." And she couldn't tell me how. Often with doctors, that's the case. They don't know too much about nutrition. But she made it very clear that once you get to the point where you've got an A1C, yes, that's 6.2, like mine was when you're pre-diabetic. The maximum amount of time you've got at that point is 8 years. She'd never seen anybody go past 8 years
Hmm.
and not become a full-blown T2. So what what really gets me excited is to see people reverse what is supposed to be this progressive disease, because at that point, you know, she had never seen anyone turn it around. That this
Right.
was pretty much the beginning of the end.
We just had a member post a remarkable. She came down from the nines into the fours on her
Yeah.
A1C. And meanwhile, the doctor is going, "What are you doing with this this high fat diet and this fasting?
He
This is not."
recommended against it. He wanted insulin
He did.
in the fall, and she said, "I want to give this one last shot," which is, you know, it's great to see somebody else's experience mirror mine, because, you know, when I was at the doctor's office, she said, "You're pre-diabetic. You need to get the full RNY, the full gastric bypass. I'm going to give you a recommendation to the bariatric surgeon in
Hmm.
town, and you know, if you don't do this, it's game over. You're a diabetic, and eventually you'll have complications, and it will kill you." So so to see her say, "I just want to give this one shot." And to actually have these concrete numbers to show her doctor at the end is really, really impressive.
It is, and I think one of the most profound parts about why I am so willing to just continually invest in this community is
Mhm.
there is no alternative. How,
No.
these doctors do not have a solution for you where the end of the solution is a cure. It's
No.
a progressive degenerative disease state, and it always gets worse. It gets to Karen's doctor's point, it's it's so predictably progressive. They can look at where you are on the curve towards death and go, you're 8 years away from type 2 diabetes. And that puts you at 12 to 14 years away from losing your toes and your eyesight.
Mhm.
They know because it's progressive in a predictable and controllable manner. And the solution is to give you medication to slow down the progression, not stop it. Nobody's curing this
Nope.
except for folks like Dr. Westman, Dr. Fung, who are out there doing the work, teaching people how to use nutrition and meal timing to turn this situation around. I mean, that is a huge component to this. So let's get down to why we're really here, Karen. People have put up with you just yammering on in a monologue for over an hour about
I
the
know. They're like so
biology of
sick of my
obesity.
voice.
They're tired of listening to you just yodel into the mailbox. Let's get down to what can they do.
We'll talk about food and exercise and food and more food.
Okay.
I like food.
How do you influence insulin resistance? What do you do?
You want to give your tissues that insulin holiday. So in order to give your tissues the insulin holiday, you need to work with your meal timing. This is going to incorporate some fasting. What we have set up as a protocol for metabolic issues and weight loss in IK, in impulsive keto, is timing your meals. So you want to have the appropriate meals at the appropriate times. Now, day to day, what you can easily do is either skip. Most people skip breakfast. Some people skip dinner, but it's mostly breakfast. So what you do is you just don't snack, and you have these 2 nutrient-dense meals. I'm not talking energy dense. I know in the ketogenic community, it's very popular to have these extremely high fat, calorie dense meals. That isn't necessary, and it can often get in the way of your goals. But you want to have the appropriate amount of protein, so about a palm size of meat each meal, and a whole bunch of veggies. You want to pick low carb veggies, stuff that has fiber. So it can have carbohydrates, but if most of those are coming from fiber, it's not going to have an impact on your blood glucose. And you just do that twice, day in and day out. And if you want to throw in a longer fast once or twice a week, that will only help resolve this insulin resistance issue by giving your tissues a break. And there's also exercise. So this is the part that I struggle with. I am lazy and I don't want to move. So what you want to do is just have something that's a little muscle building. You can do some weight bearing exercises. I mean, if you're super heavy, then walking around the block is a weight bearing exercise.
Yeah.
Going up the stairs is a weight bearing exercise.
No doubt.
So just do appropriate exercising, and slow and low cardio is good. You want to be able to breathe. You want to be able to talk. You can breathe through your nose. If you're having to breathe through your mouth and gasp through your air, gasp instead of being able to talk, then you want to slow down a little, and that'll help you burn that fat and
that's a key point
to go.
Yeah, when you're talking about exercise, going as hard as you can and panting to where you are losing your wind is not burning fat directly.
It isn't, no.
So it's actually better to do the lower impact exercise where your heart rate is getting up to so the formula is 180 minus your age. So if you're 40 years old, you want to get your heart rate up to 140 and then not really above that, because that's when your biology, the metabolism within the cells will switch over from using fat as fuel to using glucose primarily as fuel. So you want to stay on the fat side of the equation, which is favorable to this energy flux that we talked about.
Yeah. Now, should we get more into the nutrient selection?
Well, okay. So I think one thing I also wanted to put a point on, you talked about giving your tissues a break, and I really just want to reinforce, how many people have you seen that are relatively obese, but they're not gaining weight year over year? Like they get up to 260 and then that's kind of where they go, right?
Yeah.
They don't go to 270, but they also don't go back down to 230. They just kind of get stuck there.
Yeah.
That set
There's their
point,
little happy zone.
right? Your body kind of has these control mechanisms in it where at some point it just starts shunting energy via thermogenesis, via dumping glucose in urine. It does a lot of things to dump excess energy once you've exceeded what it believes your genetic capacity to carry weight is. That's why some people, can blow up to 450 pounds, and other people, they get up to 230 and then can't gain a pound no matter how many chili cheese fries they eat. The important thing for someone, especially someone who's kind of bounced into that wall, I talk to a lot of guys, especially, once they hit about 35, that 35 to 40, they're like, man, I've been like weight 240, 245 for the past 5 years. I feel like my nutrition's not crazy. I'm not gaining weight, but I'm not losing it either.
Yeah.
That is a classic manifestation of insulin resistance. And all they have to do is make the tiniest bit of room for this sugar to go, so that thermogenic capacity of their metabolism plus this hormonal management will trip off those big drops, like what Karen and what Amber saw, where things have all you have to do is, it's a teeter-totter, right? You've got energy coming in and energy coming out, and a finite number of storage and a finite amount of storage hormone. So if you can upset the scales even just a little bit through
just a little it's a tipping point. You get to that point where you just add that little itty bitty bit of meal timing, and then everything starts again.
That's right. You make the littlest divot into your fat cells so that this thing has somewhere to go. And with all else being equal, the weight just will start creeping off. I've talked to a lot of people who can basically not change their macros, but still lose plenty of weight by skipping breakfast and focusing on low carb. Because that 16, 18-hour window of insulin holiday is all that it took to upset that balance of hormone and energy flux, and off they go.
Yeah. With me, I have that magic number that if I have, the one fast twice a week, if I do that for it has to be about 36 hours, then that week is easy for me.
Yeah. Okay. So, Karen, we've talked about exercise. We've talked about losing weight. Losing the weight will influence your IR. The closer you get towards the pin, the better off you're going to be as far as your capacity to have normal levels of insulin and glucose. For sure. But the losing weight is a gradual process. You don't have that much influence over that. But know that the further you go, the easier it gets to get your insulin levels back down to normal. Exercise, we talked pretty good about. And we have 2 shows on that. If this is your first Hobbitcast, we have episode 9 and 10 where we really get into the mechanics of exercise and fasting in much greater detail. Definitely encourage you to go back and listen to those. They're good shows, and they equip you with a couple of different philosophies on how you can do that.
Yeah.
The insulin holiday, that's just that's parlance for fasting, skipping meals, meal restricted, timing restriction, whatever you want to call it. It's
stop eating, eat again, stop eating again.
Right. You need to stop snacking. Please hear us.
Snacking is key. Yeah. If you're snacking and you're saying, hey, I'm eating at like a 20% deficit and I'm not losing any weight. And if you're snacking, that's like before you start eliminating certain foods or changing up your exercise routine or anything like that, the first thing that needs to go is the snacking. You can keep everything else the same and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Nutrient selection. I don't want to get into that on this show. I mean, we know what that is. Karen and I have a point of view that optimally that's 30 to 45 grams of protein per meal and 2 cups of green and leafy veggies. That's that's the whole premise behind impulsive keto. We got a whole group dedicated to how that works. So if you don't know how to do nutrient selection, then go to Impulsive Keto and learn all about. We've got shopping lists up there. We got
food lists for days.
We've got a really cool thread up there called the 30G. It's got about 150 pictures of actual plates. So it's not a recipe board. We're not swapping recipes. It's here's what right looks like. You can use it as a visual menu if you want to go, oh, that looks pretty good. Let me go find a recipe for that.
Yeah. Ben and I put our dinner up there all the time.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what it is we just had a bunch of members take pictures of their dinner and put it up there. So you go, oh, I'm starting to visually see what 30 to 45 grams of protein looks like in the form of steak, in the form of shrimp, in the form of chicken, in the form of whatever. So you go, all right, so it's about the size of the palm of your hand. Got it. And these are the kind of veggies I'm seeing over and over. And I've got my shopping list, so I know what I should buy and what I shouldn't buy. It's just not more complicated than that. I mean, you can make it more complicated than that, but why? Just buy the right stuff, cook it and eat it.
And don't butter your pork rinds.
I'm done with macros. I'm so done with them, Karen. I don't think it's as important.
It had a use when I was starting, but that usefulness for me was finite. And, once I learned a little bit more about meal timing, then the macros just kind of fell to the wayside.
I think that, not to use too big of a word, but volumetric measurement, given a finite selection of food, is just as good as macros. Because if I tell you to have a piece of meat the size of the palm of your hand, there's only so much damage you can do.
Doesn't matter what that meat is.
Right. And there's only so much trouble you can get into with 2 cups of green and leafy veggies. I think that works for most people. The exception being someone who's almost at their ideal weight and is extremely active is going to probably need more protein, especially if they're a dude. And, we can work that out.
Extra pulse.
Right. But that's outside of the scope of the insulin resistance show.
Yeah. And I think what's really important to focus on, what Ben just said, is the finite amounts of foods that you can pick. If you are going to get into a lot of sketchy food, low carb sketchy food, so we're talking your keto cake and your keto cookies and everything made out of almond flour,
Quest
bars, you can't do that and not do macros. So my suggestion is that while you're trying to resolve this diseased state, is to just skip those altogether, or just limit them to, your Easter dinner once per season. Go ahead and have that piece of keto cake. That would work better for most people day in, day out than trying to see what will fit into their macros and making poor choices because they're trying to make something fit into their daily diet that they're choosing often on an emotional basis.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion on it.
Okay, 2 more quick points. There are 2 additional ways to influence insulin resistance that we know about. One is weight loss surgery. The aforementioned RNY, gastric bypass, vertical sleeve, all that stuff.
Yes.
If you mechanically restrict your body's ability to take in food in quantity that requires 400% levels of insulin, guess what?
What?
You've essentially created a fasted environment through mechanical means. It's enforced. It's mechanically in fasted forcing or fasting. That's what it is. You forced it.
Yes, again, I've heard Fung talk about this fasting as, you know, non-invasive surgery.
Yeah, you're accomplishing the same thing. And I'm not here to put down weight loss surgery.
No.
And you would think that I would be like, oh no, the one true path, just will up, man up, buck up, get it done.
It's a viable option. Sometimes it's the only option.
If you go back and listen to episode 4, you can hear Monica and I talk about her weight loss surgery and how successful it was at getting the weight off and keeping it off. It saved her life, without a doubt. I have no doubt in my mind that her health is profoundly improved right now because of her choice to pursue weight loss surgery. If that's on the table for you, so be it. I'm not opposed to it, and everything that we've talked about today will absolutely apply. But I'd also encourage you to consider the longer term consequence of once you've lost the weight, then what? And that's I think the most interesting part of Monica's story is the mechanical restrictions continue even after you don't need them once you've had that surgery. And if the choice is life-saving, then that's a good choice. But if you're right on that cusp, Karen's story is so powerful to me. And this was one of the reasons why I was so eager to get involved with her early journey is she was at that crossroads. Her doctor was telling her it's now or it's time to start talking about the surgery. You have to do something. And that's the message is you have to take action. This is a progressive degenerative disease. If you cannot figure out nutrient selection, if you cannot maintain a certain level of discipline, if you are really struggling with skipping meals, okay, there's a choice. There's another choice out there. And that choice could save your life. And it will get you off this road of progression. And I'm okay with that because I'm interested in you being healthy. And if that health costs you, a lot of annoying little things of having to take extra supplements and eat, 8 small meals throughout the day because you have a small tummy. Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm fine with that. The other way that we have available to us is medication. There are 2 medications, really 3, that can support the reversal of insulin resistance. Number 1 is the one everybody's heard of, which is metformin. That is, it's one of the most widely prescribed medications in the world. If you become pre-diabetic, your doctor will hand it out like it's M&Ms in a jar. It's $4 a month. It's the world's cheapest medication. And it has very few side effects other than making your tummy upset if you eat it without a meal. So that's awesome. It works very well to support healing insulin things. And it works on this GLUT4 transporter in addition to the way that it works is actually very complicated. And we don't know fully all the stuff that it does. But we can see some of the things. We know it works in the GLUT4. We know it reduces gluconeogenesis in the liver. We know that it settles down some glucagon responses. It does a lot of different things. But the important thing to take away is it works and it supports. And if your blood glucose is in that pre-diabetes range where post-meal you're going over 140, metformin is something you really need to consider as a short-term intervention to help get you started on insulin resistance. I do not have the point of view that you need to be on that super long term, but I do think that if you've progressed sufficiently that your blood glucose is over, 140, 160 postprandial, if you're waking up with that, 150 dawn effect blood glucose, or if you're like Karen was right on that edge of having that A1C that is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Metformin is a very reasonable way. It's an intervention. It is not a solution. It is supportive. And that's the part about it that drives me nuts. I cannot just hand you metformin without these other lifestyle interventions and make any change. Metformin by itself will slow things down. It will not turn the progression around. You will progress on metformin. It is not a cure. It does not fix anything. It slows things down. And if you've progressed sufficiently that you need a little support, that medication can help enhance your reclamation of this insulin resistance while you follow these other steps of meal restricted, timing restricted meals, and eating keto and getting out there and shaking your booty a little bit. It totally works. There's also another medication like Januvia, the DPP4 stuff. All kind of in the same family of how it works. It doesn't cause extra insulin. It impacts insulin response. So it depends on how sick you are. There are some people listening who are, needle dependent, insulin injecting diabetics out there. And if you're in that case, you can't just go, well, my insulin holiday is I'm not going to use my insulin pen anymore, and I'm just going to skip meals. It'll be fine. Not that simple. That's where you're headed when you get on this road, and you might get there way faster than you think. I mean, I've heard Dr. Westman say, I got, if you're only doing 50 units, if you're only doing 50 units, I could have you off of this in 6 weeks. Go, oh, okay.
And then there's a little asterisk saying this may happen as quickly as 2 weeks.
Right.
That kills me every time I read it.
I know. It's like, I need to really monitor you because this could get out of hand, and we might have to take you off the insulin right away within 2 weeks. You go, okay. But that's serious medication, right? And that's not the business that the Hobbitcast is in.
Nope.
But understand that there are ways to get there from here, even if you are someone who does have to inject insulin. And that would also include shifting away from long-acting insulin like Lantus or, some of the other stuff like that, and moving towards the faster insulins that the Humalog, Insulin R, I think it is, and, all the stuff that works. It works quick, has a short half-life, because you want to get the insulin out of your body, get it in, get the nutrients stored, and then get out. You don't want to hang it around. Like Lantus hangs around 12 to 24 hours. That's not what you want. That ain't doing you any favors, because you cannot get the fat out of the fat cells as long as you have Lantus in your body. And that's one of the biggest challenges in working with truly sick type 2 diabetics who are, they're basically on this, low grade Lantus. They're the worst to work with because they're fighting this hormone of nutrient storage. They're injecting themselves twice a day with profound levels of nutrient storage hormone, and then confused why they can't get fat out of their fat cells. It's like, well, you're standing on the brake and the gas.
We're not saying that it's impossible. I mean, we've seen it. I have this one lady that I worked with, and she was using the Lantus. She had to.
Sure.
Overnight, like you never want to stop taking these things unless you're told not to. But she did still see a massive weight loss in 5 months. She'd lost 100 pounds and was off of all of it except for one injection within 5 months. So that was pretty impressive.
Well, and this is where it gets sketchy for us, is because we're not doctors. And honestly, most doctors would have no idea what to do with this advice. if you go to a typical general practitioner and say, yes, I need a protocol for weaning myself into insulin holidays, they're going to be like, hold on.
Yeah, well, she just had to keep on going in to see her doctor
Right.
and bring her numbers, and he adjusted her medications accordingly.
You know, this is the kind of thing where when working with, you know, these pockets of groups that know how to do this, you know, like the HEAL clinics from Dr. Westman, the IDM from Dr. Fung. I know that Finney has got some stuff starting up in San Francisco. I think they're
Yeah.
slowly becoming these keto aware doctors. We know a few websites like, what is it, paleodocs.com. I think Jimmy
Yeah.
Moore's got a website where he maintains
He's got a sheet.
long list of doctors who are savvy to this stuff. You
And
got to
sometimes you
have
have to make them savvy, like where I live and where this lady lives that was having to be weaned off of her insulin. Her doctor's learning through her.
yeah.
So you have to work with the physician.
And there are limits to what non-qualified people like myself and Karen can talk about. This bothers me, right? Because obviously, theoretically, I could sketch out, you know, 9 different theoretical models that might work.
But but you got to work with that doc.
I'm no doctor. You'd be
Yeah.
nuts to listen to me. But it's out there, right? And there are resources that you can use, and there's, you know, there are doctors who can support you through a transition like this. If you have to lean on your doctor to get it, so be it. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, because part of the challenge for insulin resistance, if you're a type 2 diabetic, is you're also insulin dependent as well as resistant. So you're getting kicked in both shins at the same time. There is another medication I do want to throw out there, Karen, and I don't want to go too deep on this. I get this question periodically. I usually try and delete thread. It's on berberine.
Berberine, yeah, berberine.
Berberine.
I hear a lot about this.
Okay, so berberine is a fantastically powerful medication that, because it is an herb, falls under the same little FDA loopholes that things like St. John's wort and DHEA does, where
saw palmetto and all that stuff.
Yeah,
milk thistle.
Right. These are all medications that really, they're drugs. They are prescription.
They are very effective.
Berberine is every bit. Effective. Milligram for milligram is as strong or stronger than metformin. Berberine you can buy at CVS. Metformin requires doctor supervision and prescription. Does berberine work? Oh, hell yeah. Of course it does. It works great. It's very active on the GLUT4 transporter. It's, you know, especially in the scheme of glucose, berberine is actually more effective than metformin is. You know, milk thistle is very effective for helping heal the liver. You know, these functional medicine doctors, you know, folks like Teresa come up with all sorts of stuff where when you take someone who has the full range of supplements and medication, you could build a nice little liver stack where you were doing berberine, milk thistle, and NAC, and have way more impact than just prescription metformin. And you're not going to see your Kaiser Permanente GP handing out berberine and milk thistle. You're going to see him handing out metformin. So it's interesting to me that you see this. And there are a lot of people, I've talked to many members who go to the functional medicine doctors, they pay up for the expertise, and they come home with berberine. You go, okay. Because of that, I do not recommend berberine. I do not discuss berberine. And I don't recommend that you do it unless you're under the supervision of a doctor. That is a prescription strength medication. Anybody that says different is not being genuine. You
don't want to start cowboying your way through this.
Exactly. Do not be that's my favorite word. No cowboy medicine. You could order metformin from India on the internet. I don't recommend you
don't do that either. Please don't do that. Please don't drive to Mexico.
Exactly.
And come back with metformin, please.
There should be a level of influence that you're willing to do on your own, and there should be a level that you're not. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw the line at prescription strength medication.
Yep.
Do not fool yourself into thinking that berberine is not a prescription strength medication, because it absolutely is. And it's dosed 1-for-1 the same way that metformin would be. A 1,500 milligram prescription of metformin is equivalent to 1,500 milligrams of berberine. So I worry a lot about people who are out there shucking this stuff, going, oh, it'll be great, just take it, this will be fine. Every medication is unsafe. There's no such thing as a safe medication. Please understand that medication has consequences. It has side effects. Anytime you mess around with someone's biology and how things work with external forces, there is a consequence. In many cases, the reward is greater than the risk for the given circumstance. I'm not qualified to make that judgment for myself, let alone for others. Therefore, I do not discuss it or recommend it. I suggest to you that you aren't either, but your doctor is. If you're on the fence about whether or not that would be something that you want to go to your doctor and say, I'm considering a metformin and or berberine approach to helping manage this repair protocol for insulin resistance. Please talk to somebody who can help you evaluate the risk and reward and make an objective scientific discussion about that and inform the decision based on that guidance. Sure, you can buy it at CVS, but I don't think you should until you talk to somebody who understands your medical situation and can help you assess that risk. It really bothers me. There's one unnamed jolly fellow who is really starting to hit the berberine, and yeah. I get why, and I understand it. I'm bothered by it, and the reason I'm bothered by it is because I believe that is it, much like St. John's wort, much like DHEA, they are prescription strength medications that, for whatever reason, because they're an herb and not a drug, they're flying under this FDA radar, but they most certainly are prescription strength. How's that for a rant? I haven't had a good rant in a while, Karen. Come on. How about clap that up?
That was wonderful.
Thank you. All right. To summarize, Karen, I mean, geez, Louise,
Yes,
you've been going on for 90 minutes now. It's out of hand.
Yeah, I'm a chatty gal.
I know. Insulin resistance is a disease of overfull fat cells, hormones gone amok.
That's right.
And a progressive degeneration of insulin response from your pancreas. How do you fix it? You fix it by losing weight. The easiest way to lose weight, diet and exercise. Pick low-carb foods. Eat 2 meals a day, skip breakfast. Maybe once a week, skip Wednesday. Consider medication if your disease has progressed to the point where it has a name like diabetes. That's it. It's not complicated. We're not selling this super complicated thing.
No, and IR is insulin resistance is incredibly complicated. It is, but the solution doesn't have to be complicated.
Karen, I have a confession.
What's that?
I stole these slides and the basis of this talk from someone.
You sneaky, sneaky thief.
Good old Teddy Naiman.
You might not recognize him if you're watching this on YouTube because he is wearing a shirt.
Dr.
Good old
Naiman,
Dr. Abs.
on the Low Carb Down Under YouTube channel, Dr. Naiman's lecture on insulin resistance from the Low Carb Breckenridge event was the motivation for why we wanted to do an IR show. We put his video out, and he is smart as a whip, and he talks so fast. And I think he hit a lot of different stuff. We wanted to put our own spin on it, and rather than reinvent the wheel, we stole several slides from him. And
He has the best slides.
The premise of the talk, he's a wizard. I mean, he's a wizard at simple communications. I like the adipocyte slide where it shows how it works. It's so simple, and it just makes sense. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we borrowed slides from him. I want to not only tip my cap to him, I'd like to say, if you'd like to learn more about the biology of obesity, and if you want to hear an actual medical doctor give this speech in their own take, he's got like 60 slides where he's just boom, boom, boom of studies and diagrams and charts and biology diagrams. It's a fantastic lecture, but it is technical, much more so than what a typical Hobbitcast would be. So we're rather than shoot part 2 of this video, we're just going to forward you to the man himself, and you'll find the YouTube link both in the video and the show notes. And you can just go up on YouTube and search for Naiman and insulin resistance, and it'll pull it right up. It's the low carb down under channel. So check that out. Karen,
Ben,
we've said it all.
And now for the disclaimer.
And now for the please don't trust us disclaimer. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
No one in this podcast is a provider of healthcare, and our discussion is based on things we read on the internet. It's not our intent to render medical advice for your unique situation. Only you and your doctor can make decisions regarding your medical treatment, diagnosis, and especially the impact of prescription medication. Always check with your prescribing doctor on the compatibility of your medication before undertaking any change in nutritional approach or fasting protocol. Many medications are known to be incompatible with longer fasting without adjustment. Be safe and don't trust our word for it.